Hey, what up anyone who's watching? This is View with Ice, the channel with terrible narration but incredible recommendations for TV shows and anime. In this list today, we are going to be looking at part 2 of the best shows to come out of 2022, and just like the first video, this will also be in no specific order because I feel all of these shows are worthy of being watched. I think I'm gonna start this list off with one of my favorite comedies of 2022 and a show that I feel definitely went under the radar, and that is Bust Down. In terms of plot, the show is really nothing incredible, but in terms of comedy, it definitely got my attention. Most likely because all of the main actors are stand-up comedians that features the likes of Sam J, Jack Knight, Langston Kerman, and SNL alum Chris Red, who are also all co-creators of the show. The show simply just follows a group of friends working minimum wage jobs at a casino in Gary, Indiana. The show kind of reminds me of Southside in a way with its type of comedy. The show was created by a group of stand-up comedians, so it can be a bit ridiculous and stupid at times, but it is a type of stupidity that you would welcome in a comedy show. These days, shows get cancelled left and right, and a show like this is something that could have easily been cancelled, but luckily it has been renewed for a second season. Coming in next is The Summer I Turned Pretty. My first impressions of the show was more on the cringy side, so I left it alone for a few months. Then I started watching it again because I am a man of second and even third chances, and I'm happy to say that this show is actually a really fun watch. The show is still cringy, don't get me wrong, but it is not a bad show by any means, easily one of the best teen dramas to come out of 2022. The show follows Belly, who with her mother and brother goes on their annual summer vacation to their family friends' beach house. But this summer is completely different from the others, as Belly has had a transformation. In simple terms, she has had a glow up, and as she reunites with her friends, she almost immediately gets caught up in a love triangle. Look, I know, it sounds very cheesy, very cringy, but I promise you, it is actually a really fun show to watch, and it has already been renewed for a second season. Next up we have Reboot, and unfortunately this one has been cancelled, but I promise you, this was not a bad show by any means. This one was definitely one of my favorite comedies to come out of 2022, and one of the few shows that I actually followed on a weekly basis. The show is essentially about a dysfunctional cast of a show that aired in the early 2000s called Step Right Up. Years after the cancellation of the show, a young writer successfully pitches a reboot of the show to the network. And with this, it brings the ultimately dysfunctional cast back together, and it gives them opportunities to work through their personal issues and the issues they have with each other. The cast features the likes of Judy Greer, Keegan-Michael Key, Johnny Knoxville, Rachel Bloom, and Paul Reiser. With a cast like that, the show is definitely worth it to try out even though it has been cancelled. The next show we have is something that I feel is somewhat underappreciated. It is most likely because it is a French show, but it is, without a doubt, one of the better Netflix originals of 2022. Our show here takes place in two different timelines, and it follows Leah, a teenage girl who stumbles onto a dead body in June of 2021. When she wakes up the next day, she wakes up 30 years into the past inside of the body of a young man named Ismail. And each night after that, she wakes up in a different body. Each one of these people are connected in some way to Ismail during the last week of his life. Things that involve any type of time travel generally confuses the hell out of me, but this one really got me invested. Netflix has a really terrible reputation of cancelling solid shows and somehow keeping toilet water level shows in circulation. Let's just hope The 7 Lives of Leah gets a second season because it is truly deserving of such. That and the show ended on a cliffhanger, and I really don't want this to be the end of this great French teen drama. These days, almost anything that features Chris Pratt is guaranteed to be a solid watch, and the next on our list today is of course no exception. The term on the list is nothing new in terms of storytelling, but if you are not an overly critical person and someone who is out looking for a decent action show, I don't see how you can go wrong with this Amazon original. The story here is about Lieutenant Commander James Reese, a Navy SEAL platoon leader who is out for revenge after the deaths of his entire troop and his family. While on the hunt for the killers, he discovers an even bigger conspiracy going on and is set on taking down every single one who was involved. The Terminal list has some twists here and there, but as I said, it is really nothing special in terms of story, but it is a solid action drama all around. The show received some mixed reviews from critics calling it bland, but I feel not every single show has to be this extravagantly mind-blowing story. Sometimes we just need a good old-fashioned revenge story with decent pacing and great action to enjoy the day, and that is exactly what this show has to offer. Coming up next, we have a British medical comedy drama, This Is Going to Hurt. Our story here looks at a group of junior doctors and the show explores how difficult and stressful it is to work in a hospital environment. The show more heavily focuses on two characters, Adam and Shruti, delving into how their professional lives bleed into their personal ones. Characters will occasionally break the fourth wall and speak directly to the viewer, and this plays more onto the comedy side of the show. The show starts off somewhat fun and games, but the show will also easily fall into the dramatic. Best example I can make is House MD fused with Scrubs. This Is Going to Hurt is a miniseries, but there has been some whispers about the show having a second season, but that is of course nothing official. But what is official about the show is that this is without a doubt one of the best shows to come out of 2022. Next up, we have A League of Their Own. Most likely the most controversial show on this list, as the show was heavily bombed on the internet, but I can assure you that this is not a bad show. Otherwise, it would not have made the list. I think most of the hate comes from the fact that this is a remake of the 1992 classic, but it is done in a more modern way than some people would like. A League of Their Own is a period sports drama that takes place in the 1940s and follows the formation of a professional baseball team for women. The show mainly focuses on two characters, Carson Shaw and Maxine Chapman. Carson being a married woman who decides to leave her hometown to pursue her dream of being a baseball player. And Maxine, a young African American woman who is also trying to pursue her dream as a baseball player, but faces the struggle of being a woman, and on top of that, being a woman of color in a time where women were viewed entirely differently as today. There hasn't been any official news about a renewal of the show at the making of this video, but it is deserving of a second season, and I really hope I get to see one. Next up, we have The English, a Western miniseries. The story here follows Lady Cornelia Locke, who comes to America in the late 1800s on a revenge mission looking for the man she feels is the reason for the death of a child. There she meets Eli Whip, a member of the Pawnee Nation and ex-cavalry scout. With her not being from the country, she follows his lead in search of this man. The show only consists of 6 episodes. It has decent pacing, great performances from both leads, it has some solid plot twists, and it is just an overall great story. Easily one of my favorite shows from Amazon Prime, and it is one of those shows where I kind of want to forget about everything just to watch it again. It is no secret that The Mandalorian is considered the best in the range of Star Wars shows that came out over the last few years, the range that features Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and now Andor. Our story here follows Cassian Andor, a character that was introduced in the Star Wars spin-off movie Rogue One in 2016. The show takes place 5 years before the events of Rogue One and details the adventures of Cassian Andor. Disney ruins a lot of things, but I feel they definitely did something special with this one, and to no one's surprise, it is of course being renewed for a second season. The second season is said to be the final season of this series. I'm gonna finish this video off with one of the absolute best shows of 2022, and that is of course House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is a spin-off to the massive HBO hit show Game of Thrones, and it takes place about 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. The show takes a look at House Targaryen and the decline of this powerful house. It also features incredible performances from the cast and is also easily deserving as a successor to Game of Thrones. There are of course a few criticisms about the show here and there, but that is more for people who love to nitpick because the overall product is that of quality. Although the show is immensely popular, I know there are still people out there who are skeptical about it after the 8th season of Game of Thrones, but I can assure you, House of the Dragon is a must-watch TV show. It also holds the record for most viewed premiere of a TV show in HBO history as it gained over 10 million views on its first day.